On my birthday, my wife asked for a divorce, and I agreed without hesitation. Later, she tearfully begged to reconcile. When Shinmani brought up divorce because of Gao Yifan for the third time, I agreed. But she regretted it. You better not be playing hard to get. I'm not joking with you. Looking at the face I had loved for 5 years, I smiled with acceptance. I'm not joking either. Let's get divorced. Shinmani coldly stared at my name on the divorce agreement. Are you serious? Seeing my silence, Shinmani looked up, complex emotions intertwined in her eyes. I'm not joking with you. Don't play hard to get with me. I've seen these tricks too many times. I lowered my head, trying to recall Shinmani's smile in my memory. But I realized that the smiling Shinmani in my memories had already become very blurry. When did it start? Shinmani wouldn't even spare a smile for me. Was it on our wedding day? Indeed. Marrying a man she didn't love, then being unable to divorce because I kept holding on after her lover returned. She hates me already. How could she possibly smile at me? I took a deep breath, looked at her calmly, and said deliberately, yes, I understand. I agree to the divorce. Hearing my answer, Shinmani's brows instantly furrowed. She stepped forward, as if trying to see through whether I was up to something again. Jiang Yuyan, this is the last chance I'm giving you. I looked up at Shinmani. Her gaze remained cold as ice. I knew clearly that she was asking me again only to confirm I wouldn't change my mind. Everyone knows that as soon as our divorce is finalized, she and Gao Yifan will fly abroad. At night, I had countless times imagined this very scene, the heartache almost suffocating me. But now that the moment has actually arrived, I instead feel completely unburdened. It turns out, I really can let go. Mani, I called her softly. A momentary glimmer flashed in Shinmani's eyes, followed by an I knew it expression. I knew you still couldn't let go. Before she could finish speaking, I had already taken off the necklace and placed it in her palm. During one of our arguments, I confronted Shinmani about why she wouldn't wear our matching rings. That day, Shinmani had drunk a lot, and her eyes showed a longing and reluctance I had never seen before. She said that only Gao Yifan had the right to leave a mark on her ring finger. So at our wedding, there were no rings, only a custom necklace I had made with her name engraved on it. The rest of Shinmani's words were forcibly choked back. 5 years ago, I married her with a heart full of joy, believing it was the beginning of happiness. 5 years later, we part ways. This relationship that had tormented us both for 5 years finally came to an end. Goodbye, Shinmani. Before marrying Shinmani, I knew nothing about Gao Yifan's existence. Not until the wedding day, when I followed Shinmani's gaze and saw the man who looked very similar to me in the place where her eyes lingered for so long. Only at that moment did I realize that all of this was just a joke. But I loved Shinmani too much. After countless internal struggles, I still stood by Shinmani's side. During the toast, Gao Yifan wore a proper smile on his face and greeted me naturally. I've often heard Mani mention you, and today I finally meet you in person. Thank you for staying by Mani's side all these years. To express my blessings for you both, I'll drink this glass first. I stood there stunned. His tone seemed to be declaring something, so I looked toward Shinmani, but her gaze didn't linger on me for even a moment. Shinmani frowned as she snatched the wine glass from his hand and drained it in one gulp. At that moment, the look in Gao Yifan's eyes as he gazed at Shinmani was all too familiar to me. It was the look of someone gazing at their lover. But clearly, at this moment, the person standing beside Shinmani was me. After the wedding ended, Shinmani and I saw the guests off together. Gao Yifan was the last to leave. His eyes were red. Obviously, he had just been crying. Shinmani looked at him, her eyes full of heartache. Mindful of my presence beside her, she could only swallow back her words of comfort, finally only able to let out a sigh. A taxi stopped by the roadside. Shinmani reached out to pull the car door open, but her hand met Gao Yifan's, making the same movement. Their hands overlapped. Even though Shinmani quickly withdrew her hand as if shocked, I still saw that moment clearly. Mani, are you still wearing the watch I gave you? There was a glimmer of hope in Gao Yifan's eyes as he looked at Shinmani. Shinmani paused, then replied, yes, I got used to wearing it, so I never changed it. The two of them exchanged words, chatting about a past that belonged only to them. And I stood there, like an unnecessary outsider. I realized too late that my marriage seemed to be in crisis. That night, my wife Shinmani and I had our first argument since getting married. I demanded that Shinmani remove that watch. Shinmani frowned, her face full of impatience, and blurted out, can't you, as a grown man, stop making unreasonable demands? I looked at her in disbelief, loudly questioning why she had hidden the truth about Gao Yifan from me. But she remained silent, turning her head away and refusing to look at me. The prolonged silence was like a sharp knife, inch by inch cutting away what little rationality I had left. Finally, I broke down. I couldn't accept that the woman I loved was still so attached to a token of her past love with someone else. I suddenly rushed forward, gripping her shirt tightly. struggling to stand on tiptoe to look her in the eye. You were first loves, you kissed, you slept together, you promised each other forever. Your ring finger is forever reserved for her. You never told me any of this. Why did you hide it from me? What am I to you then? Shinmani's face instantly turned ashen. She forcefully pushed me away, wanting to slam the door and leave. I blocked the doorway, questioning her, demanding she answer me. That day, for the first time, Shinmani's eyes revealed disgust toward me. Before leaving, she only left me with one sentence. Jiang Yuyan, if there was anything real between me and Gao Yifan, it would have happened long ago. Do you think you would have had a chance? I've known for a long time that our marriage wouldn't last. Yet I still clung to false hope, living one day at a time. I truly loved her to the point of losing my rationality. I couldn't imagine how to get through days without Shinmani. I thought, as long as I loved her enough, I would certainly make her change her mind. However, everyone has moments when they're blinded by emotion. All that talk about loving her to the point of losing my mind. Clearly, I was overthinking things. Or perhaps my love wasn't deep enough. Thinking carefully, if I had understood back then that short-term pain is better than long-term suffering, I certainly wouldn't be in this situation now. Shinmani's face darkened like the bottom of a pot, as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. I laughed coldly to myself. Was she upset because my quick agreement to divorce had hurt her pride? At this point, who even cares about that anymore? Then let's meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow morning. After saying this, I stood up to leave. While waiting for the elevator, Shinmani rushed out and grabbed me. Jiang Yuyan, what game are you playing? I looked at her somewhat amused. Even at the very end, she was still worried I had some ulterior motive. What game could I possibly be playing? I simply came to my senses and decided to let her go. And to free myself as well. I stepped back, removed Shinmani's arm, and tried to keep my tone as calm as possible. I'm telling you seriously for the last time, I agree to divorce you. You don't need to worry about me bothering you anymore. And if you're really concerned, we can find a lawyer tomorrow to draft an agreement. I have no interest in your future life with Gao Yifan, nor will I embarrass myself by intruding. You don't need to be on guard against me. I'm so great. I must look incredibly cool right now. No. Shinmani's eyes were bright red as she stared directly at me. Her voice carried a slight tremor. Tell me, why are you agreeing to the divorce this time? I was somewhat puzzled and spoke calmly. I'm too tired. Is it because of your birthday? My birthday? Because it was so unpleasant, I had chosen to forget it. I didn't expect she will. Do you still remember? Indeed, Shinmani first mentioned divorce starting from my birthday. I knew Shinmani was very busy with work, so I made plans with her a week in advance, wanting to go to Ocean Park for my birthday. That day I woke up early, left home with great excitement, and we agreed to meet at 12 noon. But even by 1 o'clock, I hadn't seen any sign of Shinmani. I couldn't get through on the phone at all. Sitting on the bench, the dull pain in my chest made me feel somewhat dazed. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was a message from my friend. Being an old married couple yet still so romantic. There was also a secretly taken photo from a movie theater attached. In the photo, Shinmani was wearing a white spaghetti-strap dress, while Gao Yifan was wearing the shirt that Shinmani had mentioned buying for me. No wonder even my friend mistook them. We really looked alike. So while Shinmani wasn't answering my calls, she was watching a movie with him. All strength instantly drained from my body. I sat in the park for a very long time, until the staff cleared the area, and only then did I leave, feeling completely lost. When I got home, Shinmani was sitting on the couch. Seeing me return, she frowned, her tone full of reproach. If I didn't answer the phone, I must have had something important. Look at you. How are you any different from a madman on the street? At that moment, I unleashed all the anger I had accumulated throughout the day. We fought fiercely. Shinmani stood there stunned, shouting at me. Jiang Yuyan, what exactly do you want? Your important matter was accompanying Gao Yifan to watch a movie, wasn't it? You want to rekindle your old relationship with Gao Yifan, don't you? After these words, the room instantly fell into silence. Realizing my loss of composure, I took a deep breath and turned toward the bedroom. I wanted to calm down before having a proper conversation with Shinmani. Just as the door was about to close, Shinmani suddenly said, Yes, I want to start over with Gao Yifan. I love him. If possible, I wish the person I married was him. Are you satisfied now? Shinmani collapsed onto the sofa, looking at me coldly. Being with you is really exhausting. It was just watching a movie. Was it necessary to react this way? Couldn't we have celebrated your birthday another day? See, in the end, she still didn't understand why I was angry. It seems it was also from that time on. Shinmani handed me divorce papers many times. She knew I wouldn't sign, but she still brought it to me, then mocked my hysterical appearance, accusing me. Jiang Yuyan, it's all your fault that our marriage has come to this point. If I had known you were this kind of person, I would rather not have gotten married. And now, Shinmani was bringing up old issues again. Seeing that I didn't answer, Shinmani persisted and repeated, Is it because of the birthday? Looking at her face in front of me, I don't know when it happened, but I began to lose patience in explaining things to her. Even if there were countless words about to spill from my mouth, I wouldn't want to say them to her anymore. She doesn't love me, so she won't favor me. If I had to insert a decent reason for our failed marriage, I pulled my lips into a smile, looking at her. Yes, it's because of my birthday. So I just went along with what she thought. Shinmani stood frozen, her gaze falling directly on me, lost in thought for a long time. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something more, but after much hesitation, she ultimately chose silence. After a long while, Shinmani finally spoke with difficulty. You can stay. This house belongs to you. Hearing this, I immediately picked up my bag and turned back inside. Who would turn down money? After entering the house, Shinmani quietly began packing her luggage. There wasn't really much left to take. Because she had already moved her things to Gao Yifun's place, there was nothing here except for a few changes of clothes and daily necessities. I sat on the sofa, leisurely watching her go in and out. Feelings are truly strange things. Just the day before, I couldn't bear to let Shinmani out of my sight. Now I only complained that she was packing too slowly. I asked her, what time tomorrow? But Shinmani acted as if she hadn't heard me, continuing to organize her things on her own. I grew a bit impatient and asked again in a louder voice. I said, what time tomorrow? Shinmani had her back to me, her hands hanging powerlessly at her sides. Shinmani, I'm asking what time we're going to get divorced. Suddenly, Shinmani violently kicked over the suitcase on the floor, then turned around, staring at me intently. Those deep black pupils mixed with too many emotions. Like questioning, like blame, and a hint of grievance and confusion. I couldn't understand, but I had no energy to investigate further. After a long while, Shinmani spoke. First thing tomorrow morning when the office opens. My face remained calm, but my heart was filled with bitterness. What I couldn't bear to part with wasn't Shinmani, but the former self who once deeply loved her. Perhaps in this lifetime, I would never again love someone so passionately. I got up and tidied the scattered luggage on the floor, handing it to her. It's getting late, you should go. Yu Yen? I looked at her quietly, waiting for her next words. From falling in love to where we are today, actually it's all. Just as Shinmani began to speak, I interrupted her with a light chuckle, my tone carrying a hint of mockery. It's all my fault, I know. You've said this so many times already, my ears are almost developing calluses. I smiled with ease, as if telling a joke that had nothing to do with me. Those countless heartbreaking memories were now concealed behind a seemingly relaxed smile. My mistake was loving someone I shouldn't have loved, believing words I shouldn't have believed. If possible, I hope you'll never find happiness for the rest of your life. Gao Yifun had been waiting downstairs early to pick up Shinmani. Before leaving, Shinmani looked back repeatedly. Jiang Yuyan, I'm leaving. I won't see you out. I'm really leaving. Fine, I won't see you out. Then when Shinmani tried to make conversation for the third time, I became genuinely impatient. I pushed her out the door with one hand. The door slammed shut heavily, and Shinmani stood in the hallway feeling the lingering warmth still on her body. On the video doorbell, she stared blankly at the luggage in her hands. I didn't miss the attachment and reluctance in Shinmani's eyes. But what difference did that make? That night, I slept exceptionally soundly. The heavy weight on my heart finally disappeared. No longer would I be awakened in my dreams by Hai Yifun and Shinmani's happiness. Everything was over. The next day, Hai Yifun walked over from across the street with Shinmani on his arm. While there was no one by my side, Hai Yifun greeted me enthusiastically, as if we were close friends who knew each other well. I ignored them, brushed past them, and strode into the Civil Affairs Bureau. On this weekday morning, the hall wasn't crowded. Shinmani and I quickly went through the process. Looking at the receipt in my hand, divorce cooling off period, 30 days. After 30 more days, I would be able to completely sever all ties with Shinmani. Gazing at the azure sky, I felt somewhat dazed. Once, I had also held a marriage registration receipt, looking forward to the future, vowing to be with her forever. Shinmani stood beside me without saying a word, while Hai Yifun stood nearby, as happy as if he'd won the lottery. It was still early, and I suddenly wanted to visit the supermarket and prepare a feast for myself tonight. Suddenly, a female voice sounded from behind. Yu Yan. In an instant, a familiar figure suddenly emerged from the depths of memory. As I turned around, that person had already walked up in front of me. She took off her sunglasses, sizing up Shinmani beside me, her voice slightly teasing. I heard you've had something good happen recently, so it turns out you're getting divorced. Happy divorce. I hadn't expected Wen Yan would appear here. The last time we met was probably at the wedding. My memory of that day is particularly clear. The night before the wedding, a friend called me, saying Wen Yan had passed out drunk at the bar we frequently visited, and refused to go home despite all persuasion. I sighed and asked her to pass the phone to Wen Yan. Wen Yan took the phone, her tone slurred with alcohol. Yu Yan, Congratulations on your marriage. I'm truly happy for you. I felt somewhat helpless, yet couldn't bring myself to reproach her, so I could only soften my tone. If you're so happy, why drink so much? Will you be able to get up for the wedding tomorrow? After a brief silence, there was still no sound from the other end of the phone. I continued to coax her patiently. Even if you're happy for me, you should take care of yourself. Will you go back and rest now? MMM. On the wedding day, when Yin attended on time as the bridesmaid, she stood beside me, wearing an appropriate smile, helping me greet the coming and going guests. At that time, seeing how busy and attentive she was, I even praised her. Amazing. Someone who didn't know might think it was your wedding. When Yin smiled without saying a word, only my friend beside us looked at me like I was an idiot, then shook her head meaningfully. Of course she's attentive for your sake. At that time, my heart and eyes were full of Shun Mani, and I didn't take my friend's words to heart. The wedding began, and I stood on the stage arm in arm with Shun Mani. Below the stage, when Yin's gaze followed me closely, her eyes hiding emotions I couldn't understand, she said, "Yu Yin, I wish you happiness for the rest of your life." The wedding hadn't ended yet when Yin left. I tried to contact her, but never received a reply. As time passed, I eventually put this matter out of my mind. 5 years later, seeing her again, I was momentarily dazed. Wen Yin smiled and poked my forehead, just like she used to, bringing her face close to mine. "You haven't forgotten me, have you?" The familiar scent of perfume pulled me back to my memories. It was the one I had given her for her birthday long ago. I never expected she would still be using it. Looking at her face, an inexplicable anger spread through my heart. Suddenly disappearing and suddenly reappearing, I wouldn't remember someone like you. Wen Yin burst out laughing. "Then do you want to get to know each other again?" Amused by her, I asked why she appeared here. Besides my friends, I hadn't told anyone about my divorce. Wen Yin casually replied, "Fate, I guess." Ahem. Shin Mani's voice abruptly sounded. She was staring intently at Wen Yin. Although no words were spoken, I clearly saw the hostility in Shin Mani's eyes. I ignored her and took out my phone, intending to call my friend. "Since you're back, let's call all our friends and gather tonight." Wen Yin pulled me to her side. "No need, I've already arranged with them. Tonight we'll meet at the usual place." The usual place was a bar we used to frequent together. Jiang Yuyin damaged his stomach from staying up late last year. He can't drink alcohol. Silence fell around us. I looked at Shin Mani in confusion. What was she doing? Shin Mani seemed to realize her abruptness, awkwardly turning her head to avoid my gaze. Wen Yin, however, became irritated and confronted Shin Mani. "What right do you have to interfere in other people's business?" Shin Mani gritted her teeth and responded fiercely. "The divorce cooling-off period hasn't ended yet. I'm still his wife." Hearing Shin Mani's words, I found it amusing. "Just half a month ago," she was saying, "I can't wait to divorce you immediately." If I were to say, perhaps she was more anxious than me. Wen Yin looked at her, then turned to Gao Yifan standing beside her with a pale face, and mockingly smiled. "Don't tell me you've changed your mind?" "Does he agree?" Only then did Shun Mani realize Gao Yifan's presence, hurriedly grabbing her hand and explaining. "Yifan, I didn't mean it that way. TSK. How can you play both sides like this?" I acknowledge Wen Yin's attacking power. I don't like when Wen Yin argues, and used to always remind her that trouble comes from the mouth, to be mindful of her words and actions. But at this moment I was very happy. The person who would protect me 5 years ago still stands in front of me when I need her 5 years later. After finishing her scolding, Wen Yin secretly glanced at me from the corner of her eye. I knew she was worried whether I would be angry. "You? What right do you have to scold people?" Gao Yifan pointed at Wen Yin in exasperation, her body even trembling slightly. Wen Yin gave her a dismissive look. "Because you're playing both sides." Ha ha ha. I finally couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. For the first time in a long while, I felt this happy. People are inherently selfish. Gao Yifan's face turned red from being scolded, but she knew she was in the wrong. At this moment, Shin Mani was staring at my laughter, lost in thought. "Let's go." Shin Mani lowered her head and turned to leave. Wen Yin twisted the knife at the perfect moment. "Oh ho, she doesn't want you anymore." I stood in place, filled with emotion. In my memories, Shin Mani was always high above me, criticizing me regardless of the occasion, showing disgust, and even belittling me. I had no complaints because I loved her, but now I no longer love her. How pathetic. People are just like that. What we can't have is like the moon in the sky, but once obtained, it's tossed aside like worn-out sandals. Our gathering moved from the bar to a hot pot restaurant. My friend had to work overtime, so when Yin and I sat facing each other in a private room, the atmosphere somewhat delicate. When Yin placed some cooked duck intestine in my bowl, I looked at her in surprise. "You still remember I love duck intestine." "I remember everything about you." The private room was quiet, with only the bubbling sound of the teapot broth. Through the steam, I couldn't see Wen Yin's face clearly, but I could hear my own thunderous heartbeat. Shinmani hated the fishy smell. She said after I ate these foods, my body would emit an odor like chicken and duck excrement. Disgusting, she called it. After that day, I never touched these foods again. I made changes to please Shinmani, but she only thought it was expected. And Shinmani had probably long forgotten these trivial matters. Early last year, Gao Yifan settled in Haiqing. Also since last year, Shinmani would rarely come home at night. I couldn't contact her, much less know where she was. Tonight, I enjoyed the hot pot very much. Duck intestines, chicken gizzards, pig stomach. I ate a lot out of spite, while Wen Yin just smiled. The next day, I was awakened from sleep by knocking at the door. When I opened the door, it was Shinmani. Is there something you need? Well, I forgot to bring some things. I stepped aside to let her in. Be quick. After I sat down on the sofa, Shinmani was still standing at the doorway. I looked at her with confusion. Aren't you coming in? Shinmani lowered her head. Something behind her was making creaking sounds as she squeezed it. I looked toward the noise and saw the garbage bag I had thrown out last night. Where did she dig that out from? I got up with disgust and blocked the doorway, afraid she would bring the garbage bag back into the house. Seemingly hurt by my action, Shinmani froze in place. You don't want any of these anymore? She was referring to the gifts she had given me in the garbage bag. The proof that we were once briefly in love, what I used to treasure, but now, I would consider it bad luck if she took even one step inside. Yes, they're in the way. Shinmani stood rooted to the spot for quite a while, then suddenly tore open the garbage bag and dumped all its contents out. She crouched down, her hands constantly rummaging through the items. These are the photo booth pictures from our first date. This is the bracelet I gave you as a token of our relationship. This is the plaster doll we painted together. Finally, she pulled out the necklace with her name engraved on it. Even this, you don't want anymore. At that moment, Shinmani's expression made me feel that if I nodded, she would definitely burst into tears. I nodded repeatedly. Don't want it, you can take it if you want, or sell it to a recycling station to make a few bucks. Hearing my words, Shinmani's eyes instantly lit up, and she gave me an awkward smile. Can I really take them away? Shinmani knelt awkwardly on the ground, stuffing the items from the floor into her pocket handful by handful. I rolled my eyes at her, and she happened to catch this glance. When I returned from getting water, Shinmani was standing at the doorway with tears in her eyes, looking pitiful. Can I have a bag, please? My stomach was growling with hunger, and I really didn't have the energy to deal with her, so I turned and went into the kitchen. It's on the table, go get it yourself. Shinmani fumbled around at the doorway for quite a while before finally coming inside. Seeing me cooking in the kitchen, she quietly sat down at the dining table. Looking at my back, Shinmani became lost in thought. I looked at her expression. Had her mind been affected by the stress? I called her name several times before she snapped back to reality, giving me an apologetic smile. Sorry, I just suddenly remembered how you used to cook for me in the kitchen like this. We were so happy then. Shinmani, I interrupted her sharply. Have you gathered all your things? Yes. Then is there anything else you need? I was clearly asking her to leave. Shinmani hesitated, looking at the table full of dishes and asked, Can I stay for a meal? I looked at her in surprise, then glanced at the braised pig brain, stir-fried duck hearts, and sautéed tripe on the table. Doesn't she really hate these foods? To prevent Shinmani from doing anything else that would turn my stomach, I said without leaving any room for negotiation. It's not convenient. Please leave. Shinmani heard my displeasure. Do you really not want to spend even one more second with me? That's right. You don't even want to speak with me? That's right. Shinmani smiled bitterly. So you hate me that much? I lowered my eyes, carefully pondering her words. Do I hate Shinmani? Actually, I don't. She has already exhausted all the feelings I had for her. So even at this point, I still don't hate her. I simply don't want to have anything to do with her anymore. Seeing my silence, after a long standoff, Shinmani finally picked up her tattered bag and prepared to leave. When she reached the door, she suddenly turned back. Jiang Yuyan, actually when I mentioned divorce that day, I didn't really mean it. Shinmani's words came to an abrupt halt, because she saw Wen Yin coming out from the bedroom. If it wasn't true, then what was it? Wen Yin raised her eyebrow, walked to my side, and looked at Shinmani with interest. Shinmani's eyes instantly turned bloodshot as she rushed forward and grabbed Wen Yin's hair. Why are you here? You too. Wen Yin showed no mercy, kicking Shinmani in the abdomen, causing her to stagger and fall straight backward. Shinmani clutched her abdomen in pain, her face pale, furrowing her brow as she looked at me with deep eyes, perhaps hoping that I would still feel sorry for her like before. In the past, no matter how angry I was, seeing her like this would always make my heart soften. But now I only feel disgusted. Seeing that I was unmoved, Shinmani struggled to get up from the ground, swinging her fist toward Wen Yin. Stop, I commanded harshly, and Shinmani froze in place. Yu Yen, She hit me too, just now. I nodded. I saw that. Then why don't you say anything to her? Why? I lowered my head, pondering Shun Mani's words. Perhaps it was because of favoritism. Even though so much time had passed, thinking about it still caused a dull ache in my heart. That year, at Shun Mani's company annual party, Gao Yifan attended with her. By the time I arrived, the two of them were gazing deeply at each other on the dance floor, their exchanged glances full of intimacy that no outsider could penetrate. I forced down the discomfort welling up inside me, struggling to maintain a calm expression. At that moment, I thought if I made a scene with Shinmani here, she would definitely be angry. As the song ended, Shinmani held Gao Yifan's hand as they slowly left the stage. Seeing me, Gao Yifan released Shinmani's hand and smiled apologetically at me. Mani said you don't like these kinds of occasions, so she asked me to accompany her. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Shinmani, right in front of me, once again took Gao Yifan's hand, with affection almost overflowing from her eyes. She looked at Gao Yifan, her gaze determined as she said, "The ball is still continuing." Shinmani's words cut off my last bit of rationality. Anger and grievance instantly surged in my heart. I rushed forward and yanked Gao Yifan away from Shinmani's side. "You are not allowed to hold his hand." "Jiang Yuyan, what are you doing?" Shinmani's voice was particularly jarring in the noisy venue, yet she disregarded everyone present, forcefully pushed me away, and ran to Gao Yifan's side, carefully helping her up. I gazed at Shinmani, allowing tears to blur my vision, and shouted at her in despair. "Shinmani, I am your husband. Between me and her, who do you really want?" At that moment, the way Shinmani looked at me, it was as if she was looking at a stranger. "Jiang Yuyan, don't embarrass yourself." The familiar pain spread throughout my heart. I took a deep breath, trying to erase these unbearable memories from my mind. Wen Yin's kick felt very satisfying. That was enough. The past cannot be changed, and I shouldn't obsess over it anymore. "Let's eat." Wen Yin ate with relish, while I sat beside her, ready to serve her more food. "It's so delicious. I'm really lucky to eat your cooking." Since before, Wen Yin never spared her praise for me. She could always find good qualities in me, saying I was the best, providing emotional support. When I was with her, I always felt relaxed. Come to think of it, after marriage, Shinmani seemed to have never praised me. She hated only me and everything related to me. Seeing me lost in thought, a flash of sympathy passed through Wen Yin's eyes. Otaking the atmosphere becoming awkward, I smiled apologetically at Wen Yin. Wen Yin, however, looked serious. Thinking about the past again, as she guessed my thoughts, I forced a smile and tried to appear relaxed while looking at her. "No, that's not it. I was just wondering if there's enough rice in the pot. If it were me, I would never let you feel sad." I froze for a moment and was about to push her away, but when I looked up, I met her passionate gaze. She was serious. I shifted my gaze away, smelling the shower gel scent on Wen Yin's body, not knowing what to say for a moment. But silence, in itself, is a form of rejection. After a long while, Wen Yin returned to her seat and continued eating her rice as if nothing had happened. "This tripe is so crispy, it's amazing." Even though Wen Yin had now returned to her usual carefree self, but I could tell she was forcing herself to smile. "Wen Yin, I'm sorry." Wen Yin had rice grains stuck to her lips, and hearing my apology, she put down her chopsticks and hurriedly explained, "It's okay. Don't say that." Her reaction made me laugh. Wen Yin stared at me for a while, then laughed too. That day, we talked for a very long time. She told me everything that had happened during these past few years. From domestic to foreign lands, from stars to bright moons, from oceans to deserts, until the sun set in the west. Wen Yin stood reluctantly at the doorway. "Can I really stay one more night?" I refused firmly. Yesterday, when Wen Yin was about to leave, it started pouring rain. She was soaked through and had no change of clothes, which is why I let her stay in my guest room for the night. As for Shinmani's misunderstanding, I felt it wouldn't be so bad to let her continue misunderstanding. After Wen Yin left, I sat on the sofa and recalled what she had said to me during our meal. I could sense Wen Yin's feelings for me. I didn't know how to respond to her. She was wonderful, but I couldn't extricate myself from one relationship and immediately dive into another. That night, I lay awake again. From then on, Wen Yin would appear early every morning at my door, urging me to finish breakfast before taking me out for walks. Shopping malls, movie theaters, the seaside. Wen Yin behaved as if she had never confessed to me, and similarly, I never mentioned it. Those words seemed to become an unspoken secret between us. The 30-day cooling-off period passed quickly. Shinmani and I once again stood together at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Only this time, the situation was completely opposite. Wen Yin was by my side, while she was all alone. Before the official stamped the seal, Shinmani looked at me with eyes full of hope. "Yin, I've seriously thought about our relationship. If you don't want to, we..." "Shinmani, I interrupted her, no. Letting her continue. Let's end this quickly. Wen Yin and I have plans to go to the ocean park. Wen Yin, always Wen Yin. Shinmani became suddenly agitated upon hearing Wen Yin's name. I nodded. Yes, it's her. Shinmani frowned deeply, her eyes firmly fixed on me. You're in such a hurry to divorce me. It's for her, isn't it? You two have actually been involved with each other all along, right? I laughed, looking at her with eyes that regarded an idiot. Shinmani, you haven't forgotten that you were the one who handed me the divorce papers, right? Shinmani froze, a flash of panic crossed her eyes. That was just because I was acting out of anger. Acting out of anger? That single document could completely sever our marriage, our relationship. You're telling me that was just acting out of anger? I had no energy to delve deeper into this question. Even saying one more word to Shinmani felt like wasting my life. Whether it was anger or sincerity, I just wanted to quickly end everything related to Shinmani. Whatever. Shinmani grabbed my hand, her tone almost pleading. Yin, we don't really need to go this far. We've always been happy together, haven't we? I spoke with a mocking tone. Why not? Who's been happy? Or is it that you've changed your mind? You've discovered that you deeply love me and can't leave me. Shinmani was speechless and finally lowered her head helplessly. Love you? How could I? I only love Yifan. I rolled my eyes at her. That's good. Being loved by you would make me feel sick. The stamp fell on the divorce certificate. Finally, there was nothing left between Shinmani and me. Before getting in the car, Shinmani ran over and asked me, Yu Yan, if I hadn't given you that divorce agreement that day, would you have asked me for a divorce? I looked directly at her, trying hard to find a trace of that once spirited young man, but it was just a waste of effort. Shinmani, we were destined to part ways. Love cannot tolerate lies and betrayal. Even without that divorce agreement, or even without Gao Yifan, our relationship was destined to end in ruins. I was once briefly loved by Shinmani, so when she stopped loving me, I could feel it. Avoidance was futile. Self-deception couldn't solve the problem either. Friends booked a private room to celebrate my return to being single. Then they went off to work overtime, leaving me and Wen Yin standing awkwardly face to face. I noticed that Wen Yin had begun to act cautiously, completely unlike her previously carefree and uninhibited self. Perhaps my gaze was too direct, as Wen Yin smiled awkwardly. Yu Yin, if you find this inconvenient, perhaps we should meet another day? At that moment, I finally realized. No matter how we pretend, the marks left by our words never disappear. If I didn't want to lose the person in front of me, all I could do was face the problem directly. I wiped my mouth and suddenly shouted loudly. Wen Yin. Wen Yin was startled by me, and the potato strips she had just put in her mouth sprayed all over the table. Looking at Wen Yin's confused expression, I couldn't help but feel like backing out. After hesitating for a moment, I still spoke up. You like me, don't you? Wen Yin's face turned bright red in an instant. She nervously glanced around, then reached over and felt my forehead. You're not feverish. Why are you talking nonsense? I was a bit angry and slapped her hand away. Seeing that I was serious, Wen Yin had no choice but to look me in the eyes. How did you know? I guessed. Wen Yin was silent for 2 seconds. Then what do you want? I'm sorry. Hearing my apology, Wen Yin probably already guessed the outcome. She lowered her head with a bitter smile at the corner of her mouth, muttering to herself. I'm not even good enough to be someone's second marriage. For some reason, seeing her dejected look made my heart ache. I sighed. It's not what you think. Wen Yin was stunned, looking up at me, waiting for me to continue. I've always seen you as my best friend, and I'm very grateful that you've always been by my side. But I just went through a failed relationship, and I don't want to immediately jump into a relationship with you carrying unresolved emotions. Wen Yin, it's okay. I'll wait for you. After clearing things up, Wen Yin and I could interact comfortably again. A few days later, just as I had finished dinner and was lying in bed, my phone rang. It was Shinmani. Do you need something? I have something to tell you. Can you open the door? I was a bit speechless. Couldn't you just knock directly? I opened the door, but blocked the entrance, preventing Shinmani from coming in. Whatever you want to say it quickly. Shinmani's eyes looked like those of an injured puppy. After a moment of silence, she suddenly pulled out a gift box from behind her back. This is for you. Something you've always wanted. I opened it. The clothes were identical to what Gao Yifan was wearing in the photo friends sent on my birthday. This piece of clothing should be out of stock by now. Where did you buy this? Shinmani hesitated, stammering. A personal shopper got it. Smelling the familiar perfume on it, I looked at her with disdain. You took it from Gao Yifan? Surprised by what I said, Shinmani stood frozen, looking at me in confusion. How did you know? I sighed. When we were married, you found endless ways to disgust me, and even after divorce, you still won't leave me alone. Shinmani clenched her hands tightly, her eyes reddening. That's not true, Yin. I originally GHD this for you. He worried himself. There was a hint of bitterness in my heart. We're already divorced, yet she still fabricates these lies to cover for herself. Shinmani, you really are something else. After saying this, I stepped back behind the door, intending to close it. Shinmani was anxious, meeting my eyes, the explanation stuck in her throat, unable to come out. Just as the door was about to close, Shinmani quickly wedged her hand in the gap. The sharp pain instantly brought tears to her eyes. Yuyan, let me say one last thing. Tomorrow Gao Yifan and I are going abroad. Would you mind if I leave? Just say you mind, and I'll stay for you. I remained behind the door, unwilling to look at her again. Shinmani, let's leave each other with a final bit of dignity. Shinmani smiled outside the door, leaning against the doorframe and laughing foolishly. As she continued laughing, she began to cry. Suddenly, my WeChat notified me of a new message. Shinmani suddenly grabbed the phone, saw the contact name in the message, and in a fit of rage, smashed the phone violently to the ground. I was startled. What are you doing? Shinmani's eyes were bloodshot. If I can't have you, then neither can she. You two are together now. Yuyan, look at me. I'm hurt too. Why won't you look at me? Yuyan, I won't go abroad anymore. I already rejected Gao Yifan. I'll stay with you. Let's never be apart again, okay? I looked at her coldly. Get out. It was the first time I had spoken to her like this. Shinmani knew that it was truly impossible between us ever again. After that day, I never saw her again. The following spring, I successfully received an offer from a major company. During the celebration dinner, my phone received a text message. Yuyan, I'm sorry, I wish you happiness. I calmly deleted the message and returned to the private room as if nothing had happened. Jiang Yuyan's happiness is